It's shallower than I thought. What a letdown. Mother-in-law sneered as she pushed me into the pond. I had endured her cruel antics for so long, but in that moment, something inside me snapped. My name is Jasmine. I'm 30 years old. I've been a stay-at-home wife for 7 years. I live with my husband Gordy, who's 8 years older than me, our 6-year-old daughter, and Gordy's mother. Gordy was my boss and I was his subordinate. Growing up, my parents divorced and I lived with my mom. I guess I always yearned for a father figure. Gordy, being 8 years older and competent at his job, seemed very appealing, but I never had a chance to get close to him. He was just someone I admired. However, we got closer during a team-building event. We bonded over our shared love for movies and hit it off. We started dating. I fell head over heels for the mature and kind Gordy. Then, about 6 months into our relationship, I found out I was pregnant. We hadn't discussed marriage yet, so I was more shocked than happy. I was anxious about how Gordy would react, but I couldn't keep it a secret forever. I mastered the courage and told Gordy. To my surprise, he was thrilled and suggested we get married. I was overjoyed by Gordy's feelings. When I told my mom, she was a bit surprised but happy for me. After her divorce, my mom raised me as a single mother. The reason for their divorce was my father's affair. I was only 2 at the time, so I barely remember my father. My mom worked tirelessly from dawn till dusk to raise me. Being an only child, dinners alone were lonely, but I didn't want to burden my mom. Even though she was busy, she showered me with love, and we have a great relationship. I always thought, when I get married, I don't want my child to feel lonely. I want to build a warm home. So I was determined to have a loving marriage and family. Things moved quickly and we introduced each other to our families. Gordy had lost his father at a young age and lived with his mother. The first time I met Gordy's mother, she was kind, but I sensed something off in her occasional and cold expression. But she was the woman who gave birth to Gordy. I brushed off my unease, thinking she was just nervous. We had a simple wedding with just our families. I was getting the hang of my job and wanted to work until my due date, but Gordy insisted I become a housewife, so I quit. My mom suggested I take maternity leave instead of quitting, but Gordy disagreed. He said his mother was a dedicated housewife and he wanted the same for me, so I became a housewife. After marriage at Gordy's insistence, we moved in with mother-in-law. That's when my nightmare began. I initially found comfort in having mother-in-law, an experienced mother around, but I was naive. Mother-in-law seemed resentful as if I had stolen her precious son. Her attitude changed completely after our marriage, and she started to torment me. Yes, my initial instincts about her were right. As for Gordy, after our marriage, he became controlling and emotionally abusive. Apparently, his late father was a dominant figure, and neither Gordy nor mother-in-law could defy him. Mother-in-law was not allowed to work or even go out without permission. If Gordy showed any defiance, he was beaten and berated. Their father's authority was absolute. They endured this together. When Gordy's father passed away from an illness at 22, they celebrated. After that, they lived happily as a duo. I believe the kind Gordy I knew before our marriage was genuine, but after seeing his mother's disdain for me, his love waned. To Gordy, his mother was more important than his wife. Whenever Gordy was cold or verbally abusive to me, mother-in-law looked satisfied. Gordy would appease her, saying, "Mother, I'm married, so you could have an easier life. Jasmine will do everything for you." I think the two of them felt some twisted sense of revenge by treating me the way Gordy's father had treated them. It was utterly unfair to me, but I felt helpless. In the early days of our marriage, I suffered from severe morning sickness, sometimes unable to get out of bed. Yet, mother-in-law would say, "You're exaggerating this morning sickness thing. Who do you think you are? Get up and make dinner." She even forced me to do household chores. She would make me carry heavy bags and even intentionally pushed me once. Gordy, of course, didn't defend me. Instead, he would say, "I'm busy working. You're probably just napping all day. And you still eat the food I provide." I endured, hoping that maybe when our child was born, mother-in-law and Gordy would change. My mom, concerned about me living with mother-in-law and being pregnant, often called or messaged, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. She had raised me through hardships and always wished for my happiness. I didn't want her to worry or sadden her. I always reassured her with a cheerful voice, saying everything was fine, that Gordy and mother-in-law were taking good care of me, and I was happy. She might have suspected something, but always said, "Remember, I'm on your side. Tell me if anything's wrong." Then, I safely gave birth to a beautiful girl named Judith. The joy of her birth made me momentarily forget the torment from mother-in-law and Gordy. I vowed to live for Judith from that day on. My mom offered to take care of me postpartum at her home, but mother-in-law with a smile said, "Don't worry, we'll take good care of Judith here," denying me the chance to return to my parents. Normally, new mothers rest for a month after childbirth, but my mother-in-law had me working the day after I was discharged. Their treatment of me didn't change after Judith's birth. It got worse. Knowing I was up all night nursing, they still forced me to wake up early for chores. On top of that, I had to care for the baby. I was utterly exhausted, stressed, and sleep-deprived. Mother-in-law, seeing my worn-out state, would laugh, saying I looked like a vagrant every night. Tears streamed down my face. Judith was my only solace. The one saving grace was that Judith looked like Gordy, so both he and mother-in-law adored her, though their idea of adoring was just playing with her occasionally. I was relieved because I had feared they might mistreat Judith too. When Judith was about 3, I told Gordy I wanted to work outside. He scoffed, saying, "Who would hire someone like you with hardly any work experience?" Mother-in-law laughed, calling me a useless wife. In truth, I was at my limit and wanted to save money to leave with Judith, but they wouldn't let me work and I gave up on ever leaving. I thought, who would hire someone with so little experience? I had no money of my own, and for Judith's sake, I realized I had to endure. From then on, no matter how mother-in-law and Gordy treated me, I bore it all for my beloved daughter Judith. Even after 7 years of marriage, mother-in-law and Gordy remained the same. The only change was in Judith. From around age 4, she would sadly watch me being mistreated. When we were alone, she would hug me and say, "Mommy, just bear it a little longer. When I grow up, I'll protect you." Ever since she was little, Judith could sense the unfair treatment I endured, and it deeply hurt her young heart. Her presence alone became my beacon of hope. With mother-in-law and Gordy keeping a close watch, I couldn't freely go out. Even on the rare occasions I went shopping, mother-in-law would accompany me. However, once Judith started attending elementary school, I got the chance to step outside with just her during drop-offs and pickups. Previously, I couldn't even meet my own mother, but sometimes she would wait near the school to see us, so our meetings became more frequent. Whenever we met, my mom would ask, "Are you okay?" I couldn't tell her the truth about my situation, so I always reply, "I have Judith, I'm happy." I had also told Judith to keep our real situation a secret from my mom. Then one day, Judith expressed a desire to visit a community park a bit far from our home. She had heard from friends about a pond there with a family of turtles and was eager to see them. Gordy, being the doting father, "If Judith wants to go, I'll take her anywhere." So it was decided that we would visit the park on his next day off. Of course, mother-in-law would come along. The day of our trip to the community park arrived. I woke up at 5 a.m. to prepare sandwiches for the entire family. Making sandwiches took time since Gordy and mother-in-law had big appetites. While I was busy with preparations, the two of them were leisurely playing on their phones. Upon reaching the community park, it was evident that it was a popular spot bustling with families. We quickly headed to the pond to see the turtles. And sure enough, there was a cute family of turtles. Judith was ecstatic, exclaiming, "So cute!" I smiled, watching her joy. Suddenly, someone forcefully pushed me from behind and I fell into the pond. I had a traumatic experience of nearly drowning in the ocean as a child, so I was terrified of water and couldn't swim. Mother-in-law knew this because I had shared the story before. Thrown into the pond, panic overtook me as I flailed around. Judith cried out, "Mommy!" Mother-in-law remarked, "Falling into a pond? What a foolish daughter-in-law," and laughed without trying to help. Gordy, laughing, took photos of me in the pond. Seeing their reactions, something inside me snapped. Fortunately, the pond wasn't too deep, and I managed to stand. Mother-in-law, seeing I was okay, said with a hint of disappointment, "It's surprisingly shallow, what a pity." At that moment, I was certain mother-in-law had pushed me. That night, anger kept me awake. I wanted revenge, but considering Judith's future, I thought it might be better to endure and stay with a financially stable Gordy. I spent the entire night thinking. The next morning, an hour away to school, Judith turned to me with determination and said, "Mommy, it's okay. Divorce Daddy, Grandma, and Daddy are terrible. I'm on your side." I was touched but hesitant, wondering, is divorce really the right choice? The following day, as we approached the school, I saw my mom. Judith ran to her with joy. I hurried over, curious about their conversation. My mom hugged me, saying, "Why didn't you tell me the truth? You have endured so much." Judith whispered, "Mommy, it's okay, right? I told Granny everything." Mom encouraged me, saying, "Get a divorce. It's okay. You're still young and you can try again." She then went on to say, "You should hire a lawyer. I'll pay for the lawyer's fees. I'm sorry I didn't notice." From that day, with Judith's help, I began gathering evidence. Gordy's verbal abuse, mother-in-law's derogatory comments, everything was recorded. Unaware of this, mother-in-law and Gordy continued their behavior. Gordy's constant belittling and my mother-in-law's endless insults were all caught on my voice recorder. Unaware of this, both Gordy and mother-in-law continued their hurtful ways. Sometimes, I would intentionally tell Gordy, "I want to work outside," to which he would reply, "Who would hire someone like you, idiot?" I would also act sad in front of mother-in-law just to hear her say, "You look so down, pathetic." With these tactics, I gathered plenty of evidence. Then one day, mother-in-law, who never cared about her salt intake despite her age, suffered a stroke due to high blood pressure and became paralyzed. She was discharged from the hospital, but both Gordy and mother-in-law expected me to take care for her. "Jasmine, you'll take care of me, right? I am so pitiful." And, "Hey, Jasmine, take care of mother. If you're rough with her, you'll regret it." I firmly replied, "I won't look after mother-in-law. She's your mother, Gordy. You take care of her." I had never talked back before, so they were momentarily stunned. But Gordy quickly yelled, "You better take care of her." The next day, Gordy left for work. I had no intention of caring for mother-in-law. I planned to ignore her completely. While I was in the living room, I heard mother-in-law calling me from her room. She sounded frantic. I didn't want to help, but I decided to check on her. She looked pale and said, "Jasmine, I need to use the bathroom." I coldly replied, "Go ahead on your own." She cried out, "How could you? Hurry up and help me." Apparently, she had forgotten to wear her adult diapers. She then had an accident and started crying from embarrassment. Filled with a desire for revenge, I didn't help. Instead, I called Gordy's workplace. When he rushed home and saw mother-in-law, he shouted at me, "I told you to take care of her." I calmly responded, "I told you I wouldn't. Have you forgotten how you both treated me?" Mother-in-law kept repeating, "You brute! You brute!" Which one is brute anyway? I finally handed Gordy divorce papers. Gordy probably had no idea that I would initiate a divorce. He was in shock. I said, "I have had enough. I want a divorce, and of course, I'll take custody of Judith." Both mother-in-law and Gordy were yelling, But when I played the voice recordings, they froze. Gordy's morally harassing commands and mother-in-law's heartless commands were recorded. I said, I have all the evidence. I'm confident I would win in court. Gordy muttered, I can't believe you recorded us. Mother-in-law still shouted, Judith won't choose you. She won't. When Judith came home from elementary school, mother-in-law sweetly asked, Judith, who do you want to live with, Grandma or Mommy? Judith firmly replied, Of course, Mommy. Grandma and Daddy are always mean to Mommy. I will always live with Mommy. I hate Daddy and Grandma. The two were visibly shaken. It seemed like he was really tired of being told that Judith, who he loved so much, hated him. Did you hear that? Judith wants to live with me. Please live peacefully together from now on. I packed my bags and left. I never returned to Gordy and mother-in-law's house. I finalized the divorce through a lawyer. According to the lawyer, Gordy couldn't care for mother-in-law who was now paralyzed. She was placed in a nursing home, but due to her nasty attitude, no one wanted to be around her. Gordy, devastated by Judith's rejection, couldn't go to work and took a leave of absence. Now, Judith, my mom, and I live together, and I'm actively job hunting. My new life is just beginning.
My name is Remy, a 45-year-old part-time housewife. Despite being exhausted from work and household chores every day, life was fulfilling. However, recently, my husband Taylor has been cold towards me, making me wonder if I did something wrong. Additionally, our 20-year-old college student son, Pashik, also stopped talking to me, making me think it's another phase of rebellion. Even though my son had become a well-behaved and good child after his rebellious phase, he's now treating me coldly at this age. So, even when I'm at home, I couldn't find peace or relaxation. One day, my husband and son expressed their desire to go mountain climbing.
I was part of the Young Wonderful Club in my youth, and outdoor activities seem to be popular again. I want to start mountain climbing to improve my health. Sounds cool. I'm interested in that too. The food at the summit must be delicious, right? Remy, want to come along? Well, I wouldn't mind taking you along, haha.
Sure. I felt a bit happy thinking my husband was being kind to me after a long time. Although I wasn't very knowledgeable about mountain climbing, I thought it could be a way to relieve stress, so I decided to give it a try. However, on the day of the mountain climbing, I suddenly couldn't go due to work. As a result, my husband and son went on their own. They planned to climb the mountain for a day and descend for another day. However, even after 3 or 4 days, they didn't return. Then, I received a call on my smartphone from my in-laws. My mother-in-law, furious, shouted at me. Where are they right now? They should have descended from the mountain already. Because of you, our son and grandchild became missing. What have you done? You invited them for mountain climbing, didn't you? The one who invited them was my husband. I considered going, but, in fact, I couldn't due to work. What? So, I didn't go. I'm at home right now. What does that mean? Why are you at home now? Well, suddenly I got called for work, and I couldn't go. So, I asked them to go without me. I finished work and just came back now. Huh? But they said they would stop by here once they descended from the mountain. I prepared a lot of food waiting for them. Don't complicate things. I thought something had happened. Oh, but maybe they're not on the mountain. Maybe they're somewhere else. Huh? What do you mean by that? Maybe overseas. When I was cleaning the room earlier, I noticed that my husband and son's passports were missing. What? My mother-in-law was quite surprised and raised her voice. I also noticed earlier while cleaning that my husband and son's passports were missing, so I just thought they might be overseas. But even if they went somewhere, where could it be? If my husband and son went overseas, I became curious about their purpose. It would be fine if it were just a trip, but why did they mention mountain climbing? It might be some kind of camouflage, and if that's the case, there must be some suspicious reason. I wondered if they were planning something dangerous and were going to escape. However, I couldn't believe that my husband and son would do such a thing. A week passed, and still, my husband and son didn't return. It's summer vacation for my son at university, but my husband should have work. I wondered how they could be away from home for such a long time. Of course, I filed a missing persons report with the police, but they couldn't be found. Maybe they've become missing for real. But where could they be? If I had gone with them, this wouldn't have happened, would it? What should I do? Despite being treated coldly, my concern for my dear husband and son didn't change, and I couldn't stop worrying. Even while working, I found my mind constantly occupied with thoughts of my husband and son, making it difficult to focus. As a surgeon, if I lose concentration, it could lead to medical mistakes. Every time before surgery, I had to gather my strength, holding back the urge to cry. On that day, I couldn't go because there was an emergency surgery. If that surgery hadn't come up, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Because I'm a surgeon, I couldn't help but think my husband and son might be in a dangerous situation. It felt like my chest was about to burst. One day, I heard a strange story from a friend. It was such an outrageous tale that my eyes nearly popped out. I got angry, thinking, those idiots. What on earth are they up to? I won't forgive them anymore. After that, I went to my in-laws' house, where both my mother-in-law and father-in-law were surprised to hear my story. Although my mother-in-law usually had a somewhat unpleasant way of speaking, she wasn't inherently malicious. Perhaps she was just not good at socializing. My father-in-law, despite giving off an intimidating impression, seemed like a good person at heart. So that's what happened. I'm sorry, Remy. It's okay. Because of you, I thought Taylor and Kashik were in danger. I'm really sorry. No, it's fine. They probably lied to both you and me.
Even so, what a ridiculous story. If that's true, those two are idiots.
Yeah, I was quite surprised too.
Well, they'll probably come back eventually, and when they do, let's give them a piece of our minds.
Several days later, my husband and son returned home, acting as if nothing happened. Since I had received a prior notice, I pretended to be calm. As they were much later than initially planned, my husband started making excuses.
Oh, we decided to climb other mountains too, so we changed the plans last minute. Right, Kashik? Exactly, we'd become addicted to mountain climbing. So, we climbed a lot. And we even went to hot springs afterward. Ha ha ha, we've become very healthy. It feels so refreshing. I feel so refreshed. We made some great memories.
Well, I guess you did something bad, felt refreshed, and made good memories. You were conducting some suspicious seminar overseas.
Why would you say that?
You held a volunteer event to help underprivileged children in the Philippines or something, right? And you organized a questionable seminar in a high-end tower condo in Salcedo.
Well.
And you were recruiting interpreters who could speak English and Tagalog, right? My friend accidentally applied because she thought it was a legitimate opportunity. She has a friend who is half Filipino and fluent in both languages. She works as a freelance interpreter through crowdsourcing. She applied for the job after seeing it, but as she listened to the details, she found it suspicious. Apparently, they asked her to transfer $15,000 as membership fees. She wondered why an interpreter had to pay such fees.
Ah. That's the person who backed out at the end, right, Isa?
Yes, you nailed it. Isa is my friend. My husband, who is a company employee, had mentioned wanting to start a business before. It seems he came up with the idea of a fraudulent business. He pretended to conduct charity work in the Philippines and recruited online interpreters, but it was full of suspicion. My friend Isa, being half Filipino and fluent in both English and Tagalog, applied for the job thinking she could contribute to her mother's home country. However, when they asked her for a substantial membership fee up front, she felt uneasy and reached out to her Filipino friend, Andy. Isa had lived in the Philippines until elementary school, so she had many friends there. Andy, who could speak some languages, helped her investigate the strange seminar my husband and son were organizing. It was hearsay, but the general idea was as follows.
Thank you all for sympathizing with our cause. If you want to donate more, please register on my account and transfer the funds to the account afterward. We accept donations starting from $500. Thanks to your support, we can help the underprivileged children. Andy, thanks for volunteering. You can leave now. See you, Andy. Be sure to join us in our business again.
So, Andy, who heard the suspicious story from my husband and son, informed Isa, who then tipped me off about it. The victims were apparently mostly Americans who, wanting to do something for underprivileged children, paid $1,500 in advance. Moreover, there were about 50 of them, totaling a whopping $75,000. There was a possibility they might send more money after returning home, increasing the amount of damages. That foolish son of mine. I won't forgive him. Because of you saying that you were invited by Remy for mountain climbing, I believed it. I ended up hurling abuses at Remy since you didn't come back.
And Mom. Kashik. Despite being a university student, what on earth are you doing? There's something wrong with your head. Grandpa. Why are you here? I knew you'd come back, so I was hiding, waiting for you.
I had contacted my in-laws as soon as my husband called me, and I had them come to the house. I felt sorry for them, but I wanted to surprise my husband and son, so I had them hide in the closet. The husband and son began to panic, offering embarrassing excuses.
But we held the seminar overseas. Therefore, US laws don't apply. Yeah. We didn't commit any crimes in America. So, we shouldn't be held accountable.
Well, didn't you extort money from Americans in the US with prepayments, and later, while abroad, ask them to pay more upon returning? Wouldn't US laws apply in that case? Even if you committed a crime over there, you might be held responsible individually. Well, I'm not an expert, but either way, what you did was wrong. Why are you guys trying to justify it?
But we had no choice. I ran out of money.
What?
No matter how much you earn as a doctor, I thought if you found out I spent all the money and went broke, you'd divorce me.
Why did you end up going broke?
We went to nightclubs together, and seriously, the money ran out.
What?
We got too into it, and it was really tough.
It turned out that the foolish husband and son spent so much money at nightclubs that they ended up broke. Come to think of it, I had been feeling distant lately, and even when I tried to hold hands, I was rejected. They must have been fawning over young girls, giving them lots of gifts. The thought of a 45-year-old man engaging in such behavior with young and beautiful girls disgusted me. Moreover, It wasn't just a simple employee-customer relationship. They had developed romantic feelings and were doing various things outside the club. Astonishingly, both the husband and son had impregnated their favorite girls. It seemed that they had to earn money for hospitalization and child support, leading them to the idea of a fraudulent business. At this point, I couldn't help but think that their heads were in the clouds, and they must be exceptionally happy. I was disgusted with my husband and son, who confessed everything.
You idiots. What the hell have you done? You're no longer my son. Don't be so mad. I didn't do anything wrong. Remy is to blame for neglecting us and always working.
What?
You always say you're working, leaving the house late at night, right? That's why I got fed up.
But, didn't you marry me knowing I'm a surgeon? I'm working hard for the family and the patients. It's terrible. You probably knew I wouldn't be able to go mountain climbing because I've been busy with surgeries lately. Did you foresee from the beginning that I wouldn't be able to go?
Oh, yeah. I invited you just in case, trying to hide it from you. Well, it's not mountain climbing, though. You're always busy with work. Yeah, you don't care about us.
Wait a minute. You're the one who repeated a year and dares to say such things. I'm the one paying your extra tuition.
So what?
I won't pay the tuition anymore. If you want to graduate from college, figure it out yourself.
No, don't do that.
Don't come to me only when you need money. Ask your dad, then.
I can't. I got fired from the company.
What?
Actually, I was accused of harassing a young female employee, and I got fired.
Another shocking revelation came out. This foolish husband had already been fired from his job. So that's why he could stay overseas for an extended period without any worries. Spending money recklessly at nightclubs, impregnating girls, getting fired from work for harassment. It was giving me a headache. How could someone make such foolish decisions? This statement angered my mother-in-law, and things took a turn for the worse. She scolded my husband loudly and began packing his belongings in their bedroom. You're already dumped by Remy. Live around here or something? Idiot.
Wait, Mom, what are you doing?
I'm organizing your stuff. Can't you see? Look, is this fine?
Wait.
EW, you were going to such places. Disgusting.
Stop it.
You scumbag. You won't be allowed in our home again. Disappear from our sight.
That's right. Kneel down and apologize to Remy first. Then never show yourself in front of us again. W8.
Kashik, apologize too.
Come on, Granny.
Stop whining and kneel down. Thus, my husband and son knelt down facing me. They were sobbing, and it felt as if I were bullying them, which I disliked. I loved my husband, and I had taken care of my son. However, it was true that I couldn't give them much attention due to my busy job. But that didn't justify their criminal actions. I might have some points to reflect on, but I couldn't forgive my husband and son for committing crimes and destroying our family. My husband and son left the house with their belongings. I'm sorry for that time. I was truly out of my mind. No problem.
Sorry for jumping to conclusions. Be happy from now on.
Sure. Well, we'll be going. And so, my in-laws left. I was left alone in the house, wondering what to do next. First, I had to get a divorce from my husband. I didn't think I could rebuild anything with such a husband. After the divorce, I decided to relinquish my role as a parent and let go of my son. If my efforts and love didn't get through to him, then he wasn't worth worrying about. He was already an adult, and at this point, anything I did wouldn't change anything. After the divorce, my ex-husband paid me alimony for his infidelity. Being broke, having impregnated girls, and having lost his job, he borrowed money and gave it to me. My son dropped out of college and became a part-timer. Since he had always hated studying and even repeated a year, I thought it was fine for him not to go. Then, my ex-husband and son were sued for fraud due to their deceptive actions, facing serious charges. I felt a bit sorry for them, considering the substantial amount of the damages, around $100,000. The victims were probably furious, and while it might be wrong to be deceived, the ones taking advantage of goodwill were worse. I was relieved that my friend Isa wasn't fooled. I decided to forget about my ex-husband and son, focusing on being a surgeon. This story may have been quite dramatic, but life goes on. How was this story for you? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Well then, let's meet again in the next video.